I first came across Dietrich Bonhoeffer, I believe, in Jonathan Ives' Martin Luther King biography uh, as an influence of King's theology. Um, and today, something came into my algorithm that kind of surprised me as far as the origin of it. What I want to do is start off with a just a brief kind of down and dirty familiarization with who Dietrich Bonhoeffer was. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, 1906 to 1945, was a German pastor, theologian, ecumenist, and peace activist. He wrote profoundly about Christian faith, community, grace, and ethics, centered in one way or another on the question, who is Christ for us today? The atrocities of the Nazi regime, which resulted in unspeakable human suffering, compelled him to participate in a conspiracy that tried unsuccessfully to assassinate Hitler and install a new government that would end the war and those atrocities. Imprisoned during the last 2 years of his life, Bonhoeffer was executed just weeks before the end of the war. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'm not going to cover his early life. What I am going to do is include the link down in the description box so anyone who's interested can go back and kind of look at this particular site. There's a Bonhoeffer Society, and it's got, you know, biographical, the biographical information that I'm not going to cover. What is interesting is that he did spend a year at the Union Theological Seminary in New York City from 1930 to 1931. Just as a side note, currently Cornell West is some sort of professor of practice at Union Theological. It's a fairly famous seminary, by the way. So basically, during that year, he didn't actually think that much of the course of study according to the website, but he did make some friends, and notable among them were Reinhold Niebuhr, who is a fairly famous theologian, then Jean Lasserre, and Albert Franklin Fisher. And Lasserre and Fisher are two that I want to quickly talk about in relation to Bonhoeffer. Lasserre was a notable pacifist, and in a sermon that Bonhoeffer gave at a Methodist church, um, apparently this was it was on Armistice Day, which I think is celebrating, I guess, the end of World War One. Um, in that sermon, um, he basically said, "I stand before you not only as a Christian but also as a German who loves his home the best of all, who rejoices with his people, and who suffers when he sees his people suffering, who confesses gratefully that he received from his people all that he has and is. You have brothers and sisters in our people and in every people. Do not forget that. Come what may, let us never more forget that our Christian people is the people of God, and that if we are in accord, no nationalism, no hate of races or classes can execute its designs, and then the world will have its peace forever and ever." And some years later, in a book that Lasserre wrote, he made the comment. I don't know if it was in reference to Bonhoeffer's sermon at the Methodist Church, but the bottom line is that there is no way to be a nationalist and a Christian, and that kind of hits a note now that Christian nationalism is a thing in the United States. I'm thinking of that when I talk about this sermon and that little excerpt from Lasserre's book. The next person I want to talk about is Albert Franklin Fisher. He was an African American student who opened the doors to Harlem and the Abyssinian Baptist Church for Bonhoeffer. Basically, in that year at the Union Theological Seminary, Bonhoeffer um, um, made friends with a black student, I'm assuming at Union Theological, who was from Harlem. And Bonhoeffer actually wound up reading, people like W.E.B. Du Bois and Langston Hughes and folks like that. He wound up, going to the church and actually becoming kind of a friend of the church. He taught Sunday school. Um, let's see, what else did he do? He visited church members in their homes, etc. So I thought that was fairly interesting. Apparently, coming to the United States, like so many people, they get broadened as far as their experiences. He also Bonhoeffer also did traveling around the country. So coming to America for that year, had an indelible left an indelible mark on, I guess, his thinking. So what really got me curious to get this far, kind of doing a quick down and dirty research on Dietrich Bonhoeffer, was something that actually came into my algorithm. And funny enough, it made me laugh when I when I heard about this theory, which I'd never heard of before. But it's basically called the theory of stupidity. And apparently Bonhoeffer, somehow or another has something to do with this theory. And basically, I'm going to read a quick paragraph or two, kind of summarizing the theory of stupidity. Um, and then there's a little bit more after this, after I've read this. This was taken from a circular letter addressing many topics written to three friends and co workers in the conspiracy against Hitler on the 10th anniversary of Hitler's accession to the Chancellorship of Germany. So essentially, this letter says, or it reads, and I quote: "Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice. One may protest against evil; it can be exposed, and if need be, prevented by use of force. Evil always carries within itself the germ of its own subversion, in that it leaves behind in human beings at least a sense of unease. Against stupidity we are defenseless. Neither protests nor the use of force accomplish anything here. Reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict one's prejudgment simply need not be believed. In such moments, the stupid person even becomes critical. And when facts are irrefutable, they are just pushed aside as inconsequential. That reminds me of somebody, and as incidental. In all this, the stupid person, in contrast to the malicious one, is utterly self satisfied, and being easily irritated becomes dangerous by going on the attack. For that reason, greater caution is called for than with the malicious one. Never again will we try to persuade the stupid person with reasons, for it is senseless and dangerous. If we want to know how to get the better of stupidity, we must seek to understand its nature. This much is certain that it is, in essence, not an intellectual defect, but a human one. There are human beings who are of remarkably agile intellect, yet stupid, and others who are intellectually quite dull, yet anything but stupid. We discover this to our surprise in particular situations. The impression one gains is not so much that stupidity is a congenital defect, but that under certain circumstances people are made stupid or that they allow this to happen to them. We note further that people who have isolated themselves from others or who live in solitude manifest this defect less frequently than individuals or groups of people inclined or condemned to sociability. Um, and so it would seem that stupidity is perhaps less a psychological than a sociological problem. um, It is a particular form of the impact of historical circumstances on human beings, a psychological commitment of certain external conditions. Upon closer observation, it becomes apparent that every strong upsurge of power in the public sphere, be it of a political or of a religious nature, infects a large part of humankind with stupidity. Basically, politics can infect you with stupidity, kind of a groupthink, I guess. It would seem, it would even seem that this is virtually a sociological, psychological law. The power of the one needs the stupidity of the other. That's reminding me of things that I've said about MAGA. The process at work here is not that particular human capacities, for instance, the intellect, suddenly atrophy or fail. Instead, it seems that under the overwhelming impact of rising power, humans are deprived of their inner independence and more or less consciously give up establishing an autonomous position towards emerging circumstances. The fact that the stupid person is often stubborn must not blind us to the fact that he is not independent. In conversation with him, one virtually feels that one is dealing not at all with a person, but with slogans, catchwords, and the like that have taken possession of him. He's under a spell, blinded, misused, and abused in his very being. Having thus become a mindless tool, the stupid person will also be capable of any evil and at the same time incapable of seeing that it's evil. This is where the danger of diabolical misuse lurks, for it is this that can once and for all destroy human beings. Yet at this very point, it becomes quite clear that only an act of liberation, not instruction, can overcome stupidity. Here we must come to terms with the fact that in most cases, a genuine internal liberation becomes possible only when external liberation has preceded it. Until then, we must abandon all attempts to convince the stupid person. This state of affairs explains why, in such circumstances, our attempts to know what the people really think are in vain, and why, under these circumstances, this question is so irrelevant for the person who is thinking and acting responsibly. The word of the Bible, that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, declares that the internal liberation of human beings to live responsible life before God is the only genuine way to overcome stupidity. But these thoughts about stupidity also offer consolation in that they utterly forbid us to consider the majority of people to be stupid in every circumstance. It really will depend on whether those in power expect more from people's stupidity than from their inner independence and wisdom. This is Dietrich Bonhoeffer from After 10 Years in Letters and Papers from Prison. And then you can read the rest of the information if you want to go back and reread behind me. I'll make sure that this link is put in the in the information part of the video also. Okay, and from here I want to move on to a person that I had never heard of, but kind of comes up in this same little PDF from a organization called On the Wing. Um, Guy named Carlos Cipolla. I'm assuming I'm mispronouncing his last name. Probably, maybe it's. Well, anyway, I won't worry about that. In the 1970s, Carlos Cipolla, a social psychologist, developed 5 laws of stupidity. The term itself, he said, wasn't a description of intellectual acuity, but of social responsibility. A stupid person is a person who causes losses to another person or to a group of persons while deriving no gain for himself and possibly incurring losses. Cases in which someone takes an action by which both parties gained was deemed intelligent. Stupidity is independent of any other characteristics of that person, whether nationality, ethnicity, sex, economic status, or even education. The frequency in a given group is independent of the size of the group. This too indicates it's a social phenomenon, a spontaneous mob mentality. So Cipolla warns that we will always underestimate how many there are in a group. Stupid people are dangerous and damaging because reasonable people find it difficult to imagine and understand unreasonable behavior. An intelligent person may understand the logic of a malicious person. His actions follow a pattern of rationality. But a stupid creature will harass you for no reason, for no advantage, without any plan or scheme, and at the most improbable times and places. You have no rational way of telling when, how, or why the stupid creature attacks, because the stupid person's actions do not conform to the rules of rationality. It follows that we are generally caught by surprise by the attack. We cannot mount a rational defense because the attack itself lacks any rational structure. Non stupid people constantly forget that at all times and places and under any circumstances, dealing with or associating with stupid people always turns out to be a costly mistake. Yet our naivete, compassion, and mercy for these stupid creatures may lead us to put them in positions where they can exercise authority over others. We enable them to hurt themselves and others. We hope to give them a sense of self worth that will overcome their stupidity. We think it's an issue of education or life experience they're victims of circumstance and not innately stupid. Thus, we help them rise to power, as with Hitler and Stalin, even allowing them to make our regulations and laws and to enforce them. But in truth, this never accrues to the welfare of a society. Instead, it leads to its downfall. This is as much this is as true in the church as in the world. So those who would lead must first demonstrate they can manage their own households well. They must make intelligent choices that benefit others as well as themselves, ethical choices, showing that they are servants of all. Okay, Carlo uh, Cipolla. That's the best I can do with his last name. A book called The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity. I have not read this book. It's only something like 52 pages, and I will probably do a separate video on this particular book. But the emphasis I want to make is, I've kind of I've kind of talked in this vein for the past few months. Um, you know, basically about MAGA and what Trump is doing right now. Um, and for the life of me, I do not understand why people see the value in Trump basically being so nakedly anti constitutional. And I think that, you know, people are basically saying, or a lot of people are basically saying, that we need a strong hand on the tiller, a unitary executive, that sort of thing. We need somebody who's strong enough to cut through the red tape and get things done. But the thing is that getting things done, um, for 50% of the country basically leaves the other 50% in some form of dissatisfaction or outright hostility. I don't see the point of doing this sort of thing if you've only got 40 to 50% of the country. It is a recipe for unrest, and that's at a minimum. So, we wait to see what Trump's doing, and I'm sure that, he's just kind of like a toddler pushing boundaries to see what he can get away with. But it's a dangerous game, and the problem isn't so much Trump. He's a symptom, in my opinion. The actual problem is basically described in some of the stuff that I've read through today. Basically, being um, I don't know, just being objectionable for no rhyme or reason other than to just get your way. Um, to the objection of people, that's basically, part of being sociable is compromise. And when one side is unwilling to compromise but is willing to impose its will on the other half of the population, you're not going to get, Pax Romana or Pax Americanus. So, with that in mind, we I will just wait to see what happens, and we deal with what comes our way, the best we can, and with that, I will ask everybody to make sure that you subscribe to the Stanley Cross channel. Make sure that you share, videos with people who, may enjoy my silliness. And until next time. And I think I will be doing a show tonight. I'm not exactly sure what time, but stay tuned. The show will, of course, be on John Galt's Urban Landlord channel, Stanley versus the World. Talk to y'all later.